Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to Massachusetts in America once again, and we're going to revisit a brewery that you've seen me review twice in quite recent videos, and I have to admit I have been very impressed with these guys, and I'm sure if you're a big beer fan you'll know exactly why. So for this review we are going to return to Charlton, and we're having a look at my third and final beer for the moment from Treehouse Brewing Company. This one is the Haze, and it is a New England double IPA coming in at 8.2% ABV. I've reviewed the Julius and the Green before, and both of those were really quite nice actually. So basically what I've done is I've worked up from the lowest alcohol to the highest alcohol, but very curious to see how this one turns out. I was impressed with both the other beers I had from these guys, and hopefully this is another very solid one. So yeah, definitely looking forward to it, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. Huge thank you to Chris Contreras once again, American guy living in Belgium who has sent me some ridiculous beers over the last few months. He made this review possible, so Chris, a massive thank you to you for this one. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Treehouse Brewing Company before. Hopefully I can add some more in the fairly near future. As I've mentioned before, I will be in New England in 2020, so I might get the chance to visit the brewery for myself. There's all the usual social media in the description below as well. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the American beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Treehouse Brewing then, on to my brewery notes. So as I've mentioned to you before, Treehouse Brewing are based in Charlton in Massachusetts, which is about halfway between Hartford and Connecticut, the state capital if I remember correctly actually. And that is to the southwest, and you've also got, it's also halfway between Boston as well, which is up to the northeast on the New England coast. But the company was founded back in 2011 by four friends. This was Dean Rohan, Nate Lanier, Damien Gaudreau and Jonathan Weisbach, but I think Jonathan isn't actually actively involved in the company anymore. Dean had a background as a plumber, Jonathan was a graphic designer, Damien co-owned and ran a gym, I think he still is involved in that as well, and Nate was a construction manager. But the guys had homebrewed together from around 2008 in Nate's kitchen, and then they moved to a small 2.5 acre farm in Brimfield which has a treehouse on the edge of it, and it was that treehouse that would inspire the name of this brewery. But the brewery continued to grow over the coming years, but in 2013 they moved to Corran Farm in Monson, which was owned by one of the founders' families, and there they expanded the capacity from 150 to 900 US gallons, which in real people measurements, the metric system, is 570 litres to 3,400 litres of beer per brew, and they opened up a tap room at this site as well. In 2016 though, the company bought land in Charlton and they planned the construction of a 53,000 square foot brewery, which is 5,000 square metres, and this went on to open in May of 2017, and it can produce 60,000 US barrels of beer per year, or 9.5 million litres. The previous site at Monson is now home to their barrel aging programme, and over the last few years they've added a larger outdoor space and another mezzanine level inside their new brewery. But in 2019 they also purchased a farm in Woodstock in Connecticut, and apparently they plan to experiment there further with some more barrel aging stuff and also open fermentation. They're also growing their own fruits and things like that according to the website as well. Nate, out of the four founders, is the head brewer, and according to Untappd these guys have produced 280 different types of beer as of October 2019 when I'm filming this review for you. But as I've told you before, these guys are one of the really kind of renowned New England craft beer breweries. You know, when it comes to these beers, the ones that we would hear about over here in Europe would be, for example, Treehouse, Hill Farmstead, Trillium. There's a couple others that aren't coming to mind though, and other half from New York I guess are quite big here these days as well. But oddly enough, this is a brewery that everyone kind of knows about, but you really don't find them. I think I've not even seen these guys over the water in Copenhagen, which is one of the best beer cities around. I think maybe they've come across for some beer festivals and things, but I've never seen the cans available to buy in in Copenhagen through any of the Mikkeller shops or through Kiosk or anything like that. So yeah, kind of unusual that, because we do get random things from Chicago and from Washington and all of that. So yeah, interesting. But yeah, definitely a brewery that you want to check out. I've been impressed with the 2 beers I've had from them so far, and it is going to be interesting to try the big boy actually. So we'll see how we get on with this one. But that's all you really need to know about Treehouse Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more, of course, you can check out the brewery website in the description below, and you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. If you're interested in the different beers that they do, I would recommend that you check out the Untappd and Rate Beer pages for the brewery. But yeah, let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself then. So as you can see with this one, the artwork is pretty similar to what you've seen already with the Julius and the green. You know, it's just a different colour, and I think that tends to be the case with a good number of their cans. This particular can is 1 US pint, which again in metric system is 473 millilitres. Most of the beers you'll find over here in Europe are 440s. We call them tall boys. It says on the back here, "We are excited that you are holding Treehouse Brewing Company's hop saturated double IPA Haze. Haze is a soft and dangerously drinkable beer with flavours and aromas of orange juice, fresh peach and papaya, offset by a gentle bitterness. It is intensely flavourful, yet well balanced. Haze is the result of our uncompromising dedication to fresh, progressive and delightful beer. We hope you enjoy it with laughter, good cheer and in the company of those you love." So yeah, interesting. But apparently, there you can see the Treehouse Brewing Company symbol there, which is quite nice. Apparently this beer came around just about the time they were moving from their original brewery at Brimfield, and they had a couple of double IPAs apparently, and one of the wives said, they were like, "Oh, we need one to kind of move into our core range or whatever," and apparently one of the wives said, "Oh, this one's hazy, just call it Haze and that'll be your double IPA." So that's why it, you know, has this name actually, Haze, and it seems to have been one of the mainstays of their range so far. But I think from an extra view from Treehouse, I need to get a hold of some stouts and things like that. As I always like to say, when you're trying a brewery, you really need to have something from the light end of the spectrum and from the dark end of the spectrum to see what they're all about. But as I say, I have been impressed with these New England IPAs. So without further ado then, let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting then. The Haze Double New England IPA, 8.3% from Treehouse Brewing in Charlton, Massachusetts, America. Yeah. So yeah, the one thing I've really noticed about the Treehouse beers so far is just how smooth the sort of malty and yeasty qualities have been. And I was commenting on that before, you know, when I first tried Alchemist, when I first tried Heady Topper, you know, that I was surprised at how kind of rusticy and farmhouse it was. It had that, the whole yeasty kind of thing was really quite interesting. I didn't expect that from them, because most of the New England IPAs we get over here in Europe are kind of creamy, but we are starting to get the Kvike IPAs, which are a little bit more like the original New England ones, if you like, that have a little bit of that herbal, vegetal kind of grainy kind of thing in the malt base and yeasty qualities as well. But these ones are very, very smooth actually. The Julius was a very light drinkable New England IPA. The green was kind of more what I was expecting, like a big sort of thick, quite creamy sort of thing. So I'm really curious to see what route this particular one goes down. But yeah, as you can see with this beer, this is poured quite a lovely bright yellow colour. This one I think is definitely a little bit brighter than the other two that I've had before, but it still has that kind of, you know, peachy, pineapple-y juice sort of tinge to it, to be honest with you. There's about a 1/4 finger of a frothy white head on this one. I would say that it's hard to tell whether it's creamy or whether it's just straight up white actually, because it looks creamy on the top but then it's almost perfect white on the sides. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, quite a few little ones heading up towards the bottom of that head there, but you know, overall it looks pretty nice, this one. It's pretty much what you would expect from a New England IPA. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see it is pretty hazy, not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one, but that's kind of what you would expect from a New England IPA or double IPA, whatever. But yeah, nice looking beer this, so let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on. Oh, that smells pretty nice actually. But yeah, straight away with this one, because the interesting thing with the other two was they were mentioning certain fruits on the can, and I agreed with them on the aroma, but I think it was with the green I didn't particularly agree with that in the flavour. But for this beer, it has, straight away you're going to get those nice kind of tangerine oranges. I've got a feeling there's something for me really, I want to say that this might be Mosaic and Citra together. It could be other things, of course, because there's a lot of different hops now in America that will give you oranges and stuff. Sabro is a new one. You've got Idaho 7, which can give you some of the passion fruity, mango-y notes. There's so many different hops there, but considering this beer's been around since like 2013, 2014, I think that this is probably Citra and Mosaic. I don't think it's Amarillo. The orange isn't oily enough to be Amarillo. But for me, lovely, big, juicy, kind of tangerine orange notes in there. A good bit of mango, I think, as well. And you can definitely pick out a sort of the apricot-y notes. I would probably have said apricot rather than papaya, right enough. They're saying on the can it's papaya. But to me, probably that would have come out as... I would have said it was apricot. It really, some of the aromas in this beer really remind me of the little Munch Bunch yogurts that my mum used to give me in my lunchbox when I was young. The apricot ones there. But this, to me, it smells absolutely lovely. Juicy, kind of tangerine notes. Definitely a bit of mango in there. There might be a little hint of one of those darker, more pungent tropical fruits, such as, I think mainly passion fruit, rather than grapefruit, right enough. But definitely a nice little bit of definitely some nice sort of lighter, juicy kind of tropical notes. Pineapples, apricots, papayas. I can definitely see that. A little bit of a stronger passion fruit, and you've also got a really nice, there's also like a really nice kind of just juicy tangerine note to this one. You can smell with this beer as well, it is pretty boozy. I mean, the malt base and the yeasty qualities come across as being very, very smooth. It's mainly the oats, I think, that comes out of this one. And one of the things I've always commented on with New England IPAs, I've always felt when you go above 8%, it's unlike a West Coast IPA. With the New England ones, it's quite difficult to keep the booziness down a little bit, if that makes sense, like to actually feel the booziness without adding like a little bit of caramel or a little bit of carapils or something like that, having just that little bit of biscuity, caramelly sweetness in there to cover the booze. It's quite difficult with that, and I noticed that first off with the Brewski IPAs from here in Skåne in Sweden. When they started to go above 8.5%, you started to struggle with the booziness a little bit. But this one comes across as being very oaty, and I'm surprised. Quite a lot of the European ones have a lot of wheat in them as well. But this one comes across really as very, very oaty. You can smell a little bit of a white bready kind of wheaty thing in there, but again it's very smooth. Sometimes with certain wheats it can have a little bit of astringency and push its way out, but really, for me, definitely more oaty than anything else. Perhaps a little bit of a McVitie's digestive kind of biscuity thing, or cookies for the American viewers. But yeah, on the green side of the hops as well, I would say quite floral, definitely not piney, more of a kind of floral quality coming out of this one. A little bit of a lighter grassy note, maybe a little hint of earthiness, and that's one of the other things that makes me think that maybe there's a bit of Mosaic in here. I always find you get just a little hint of earthiness from Mosaic, along with those kind of tangerine notes as well. But overall, the aroma is really nice of this one. You can tell this one to me comes across as being a little bit smoother and more oaty, but it's definitely got the same sort of juicy, fruity qualities that you'll pick up from the likes of Julius and Green as well. But let's have a taste of this one then and see how we get on. As I always say, take a bit of time and enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck in. This one is the Haze, a New England double IPA from Treehouse Brewing Company in Charlton, Massachusetts, over in America. Once again, a huge thank you to Chris for making this review possible. Let's get stuck in. Sláinte, skål. Yeah, that's really pretty good. It's very, very smooth and easy drinking. I mean, if I'm honest, I think the green was a little bit... the green to me felt a little bit heavier than this one, which is kind of interesting. I wouldn't have expected that. I mean, you can tell that this beer is a little bit boozy, but the green to me felt a little bit thicker, and I've noticed that with the Treehouse beers. To me, the mouthfeel is quite... the thing that's surprised about these beers is just kind of how light they are. I would have expected them to be a little bit kind of thicker in their mouthfeel, but they're packed full of flavour, I mean, and that's the main thing. It's just a little observation I've made, particularly compared to the European ones. But in fairness, I think here in Scandinavia, there is a big thing about how thick your beers are. If you try the West Coast IPAs, they're very thick and oily. The same with the Imperial Stouts. Like, people love a big, thick Imperial Stout here. And the New England IPAs are much the same. They're big and thick, so I think, but it might just be the New England ones as well. I'm sure I said the same about Alchemist and stuff like that. They seem to have a light mouthfeel in the New England area. I think the ones that I had for the New England IPAs and hazy IPAs I was having from Chicago did feel a little bit thicker than this. So that's another interesting observation, I think. But again, this one is really quite nice. I like how this goes together. It gets a thumbs up from me. So yeah, let's try and break this one down a little bit then. So straight away, in the middle of your palate, you're going to feel that nice. There is a little bit of that wheaty quality that just blankets the middle of the tongue there, and you're going to notice with this one compared to the others, I'm finding that there's a little bit of astringency in the middle of the palate from the wheat, and I think probably they have used wheat to push the alcohol of this beer up a little bit. You can feel that a little bit, but then again, it might be the yeasty qualities that's giving you a little bit more of a kind of citrusy characteristic in the middle of your palate as well. But it's definitely, it's actually not a million miles away from what you would get from a Kvike IPA here with the Norwegian yeasts from Voss. It really isn't a million miles away from that, but at the same time it maintains that sort of creamy, smooth, almost slightly sweet quality that you'd expect of a New England IPA rather than a Kvike IPA. But that's really nice how that goes together, actually. I mean, I like that little bit of astringency. It just gives the malt base a little bit more of a kind of bite, if you like, which is interesting. But yeah, smooth, wheaty, white bready qualities. There's a little bit of a kind of bite to it the further into the aftertaste you go. Very centre of the tongue, you've got a nice kind of oaty, creamy quality in there, and perhaps in the very centre of your palate there's a little touch of a kind of McVitie's biscuit sort of thing. The one thing I have noticed about these Treehouse beers as well is that the malt base isn't overly complex. It's actually very straight up, but it's just very smooth and pretty well crafted, if that makes sense. These beers, compared to some that I've had, I think it's fair to say with Treehouse, they're not overly complex, they're just very, very well done. I think that's definitely a fair statement about these ones. But I guess the other thing you can say about that is that obviously I was first exposed to this style with the likes of Stigbergets and Omnipollo, Amarbroik, who's from Denmark and things like that. You know, it kind of shows you that when you go back and try these original US ones, it does actually show you just how good some of the European breweries are at this style as well, actually. You've got new breweries like Gamma in Copenhagen, Dry and Bitter from Copenhagen as well. You know, there's some really, really good New England brews. Malmö Brewing Company just down the road from me as well. They are, you know, the quality of the New England IPAs in Europe is pretty damn good, and it's cool to come back and try these ones that sort of inspired the style, if you like. So yeah. But yeah, very straight up and very smooth and nice malt base, this one. But as I say, the difference between this one and the others is you get a little bit of bite to this the further into the aftertaste you go. On the hoppy side of things, back corners of the palate, there is a little touch of earthiness there. As you move further forward on the tongue, it smooths out a little bit. As you reach the front corners of the palate, it's got a nice little bit of a floral aromaticity. Yeah, definitely a nice little bit of a floral aromaticity to this one. Round the front curve of the palate, it's just a little bit lighter and more grassy as well. I would say that the green side of the hops in this beer is actually pretty balanced. It leans a little bit more towards the floral side of things. It's not quite spicy, but it's very bright, if that makes sense. And you can feel some of the floral quality just spreading round into that grassy part of the flavour as well, which is interesting. But behind the front curve of the palate, you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy, fruity esters start to push their way out of the beer. And it's interesting with this as well, because now that I think about it, I think the yeast they've used in this is quite a high attenuating one, to be honest, because some of those citrusy characters, the more and more that I drink of this beer, the more they start to come out in the middle of the palate. And it's the same kind of feel that you might get, or the same idea. It's not really, it's a completely different flavour profile, right enough, but it's the same idea that you get from the Brut IPAs. You do get some of those fruity notes coming out in the middle of your palate too. The same with the Kvike IPAs. But yeah, that's an interesting point to make about this beer. But the fruity side of things, again, is quite interesting with this one. To me, this is a very sort of straight up New England double IPA. I mean, compared, obviously this is one of the ones that kind of kicked off the New England style, if you like. So you have to remember, if it's even correct to say that for a New England IPA, this one is a little bit old school, but it's nice. I mean, it's a little bit almost like a retro New England IPA, because the European brewers, I think, they always play around. They bring in hops from Australia, New Zealand, America and stuff like that. So I don't know if it's maybe right to say the ones in America, maybe they they have a recipe that they like and they stick with it, but they still experiment a little bit, but mainly just with American hops. I think with the European ones, we've even got, you know, high alpha acid hops from Slovenia, Germany, Poland, all of these places. I think there's maybe a bit more experimentation in terms of hops and things like that happens in Europe. But I mean, this one to me is really very nice. Now that I think about it as well, these beers, they actually remind me a little bit of the ones I had from Zhagovor Brewery and Stam Brewing from Moscow in Russia. You know, I can see where they took their inspiration for their own beers now when I try the Treehouse ones. That's another interesting point to make. But yeah, on the fruity side of things then, this is the fruity side of this beer really just hits the spot. I mean, if you go to the back of that oily bubble that I was talking about, you get a little bit, there is a teeny hint of like a slightly darker passion fruity note or something, but as you come forward from that, you've got a juicy tangerine orange. I'm pretty sure there's mosaic in here, to be honest with you. I'm almost certain that there's mosaic in this one. And that's the tangerines and the sort of slightly earthy note that it has that gives that away. As you come further forward from that though, that's when you start to get the kind of tropically notes. You know, maybe there's a little bit of mango in there. I think, yeah, apricots, papayas, a little bit of pineapple maybe, definitely there. And almost just on the very, very tip of your tongue, there's a little bit of a blueberry note as well. And that's another one of these little kind of complexities, if you like, that you can get from mosaic. So I'm 100% sure there's mosaic in here. I think there's something else as well. I'm not sure exactly what it would be. I was initially going to say from the aroma that it was Citra, but I really don't know what the other hop in this one would be. It could be, I don't think it's not Sabro. Sabro gives you more of an orange. I don't think it's Idaho 7. I mean, the thing is, there's I don't know, could it be like Girillo or something? Girillo gives you these nice kind of pineapple-y notes from what I remember, and it could be something like that. I'm really not sure what the second hop in this one would be, to be honest with you. But the mosaic notes in this, the tangerine oranges, are really quite nice. It might even be a single hop, I don't know, but mosaic for me was always a little bit more orangey than this, and the tropical fruit notes that are in there for me suggest that there's a second hop in there. So yeah, very curious about that. I always like playing guess the hops with these beers when you don't know what's in them exactly, but in terms of the fruity note, that for me, it really kind of hits the spot. This was very, very nice. But yeah, it's just, that's the other thing, it's just funny that that thought came to mind. That this, you know, trying these Treehouse beers, it is actually very, very similar to the Zhagovor ones I reviewed a few weeks back from Moscow in Russia. Stam Brewing as well, White Lab Brewery from Russia. You can really see where these guys are taking their inspiration. It's interesting that their New England IPA, the inspiration is more coming a little bit from America rather than the other European breweries who they might encounter a bit more readily, to be honest. That's a really interesting point to make, actually. But yeah, this is a really, really nice New England IPA, this one. It gets a thumbs up from me, no question. The fruity notes in this are particularly what hit the spot for me, actually. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say this one's quite interesting. It actually, in terms of its mouthfeel, feels a little bit more like Julius. It's a little bit lighter and wetter for me compared to anything else. This one is at the top end of mid-bodied. It is quite thick. I actually think this beer might feel a little bit lighter in the mouthfeel than the green does, to be honest. Carbonation is very, very smooth. It's got a good balance between smoothness and wetness, this beer. I would have expected this one to be a little bit thicker, and dare I say it, I think the green is a little bit thicker than this one. In terms of hoppy bitterness and stuff like that, it was interesting because I had a little look at the bitterness of these beers that I've been reviewing on Untappd just to see, and it says they're 90 IBUs, and to be honest with you, when I was trying this beer, I really, unless my palate is getting saturated these days, I would never in a million years have thought that these beers were 90 IBUs. Never, I would have thought this was about 30 or something like that. Maybe 40 at a push, but I would never ever in a million years have thought these were 90, but that's what it's listed at on Untappd, which I thought was very strange actually. I would have guessed that these beers were 30 IBUs, 40 at an absolute push, but the malt base, like I said, is very, very smooth. The carbonation kind of aids that as well. There's a little touch of sweetness to the malt base as well, and the fruits are very light and juicy and a little bit wet, to be honest with you. To me, this is quite a wet, light New England double IPA. As I said, this one isn't quite as thick as some of the ones you'll get from here in Scandinavia. I've not reviewed too many New England IPAs from Scotland, right enough, but I think compared to the ones that you'll find in England, this one is a little bit lighter and more wet, I think, but the flavour profile is really nice. I think in New England they do like a nice light, easy drinking kind of beer, to be honest with you, which is an interesting point to make. But overall, this is another really, really nice beer. Little bit, to me, it comes across as a little bit old school for the New England style, and it's strange to say that for a style that's only been around for a couple of years, but it's very light, wet, and easily drinkable, this beer. So yeah, let's just leave it at that. This is a really nice, dangerously drinkable take on a New England double IPA, and I think it's, for me, it's just because the mouthfeel is so light that it comes across as being very, very, very drinkable. But if you like the mosaic hop and orangey kind of New England IPAs, I think you'll like this one, but likewise it's balanced out with a nice kind of hit of tropical fruit as well. So yeah, just keep that in mind with this. A really interesting beer, this one, and it's definitely cool. It's definitely been cool to have reviewed these three New England IPAs from Treehouse Brewing for you. A massive thank you once again to Chris for making this possible. So yeah, let's just leave it at that. This one is the Haze, an 8.2% New England double IPA from Treehouse Brewing Company in Charlton in Massachusetts over in America. Definitely a brewery that I'm going to try and visit when I make it out to the US again in August, September of 2020. So hopefully you can see a little brewery visit video. Actually, that's one that I definitely want to have a little visit to. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Treehouse Brewing Company as well. I'm sure I'll return to these guys at some point in the future, and the next beer review will hopefully be one of their Imperial Stouts or something like this. I'd be very curious to see how these guys do. Likewise, I'd love to see how their West Coast IPAs would turn out. I don't know if they've done one, but I think it would always be cool to see the West Coast breweries doing the New England IPA, and likewise the New England breweries doing more of a West Coast IPA. I think that would be interesting. A black IPA would also be really great as well. But thank you again for watching. Make sure you check out my social media. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below, and I will catch you guys very soon. Until the next time, Slàinte just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Slàinte, skål, cheers.